Hello, welcome to Native Yoga Center. My name is Todd McLaughlin, and today, how to practice Ashtanga Yoga if you have back pain. And so, I want to just take two poses, triangle and twisting triangle, and break down some of the things that you can employ to make sure that you strengthen the spine as opposed to just bending it without having any real clear realization as to what we're doing. Long story short. So, with that being said, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section. And at the end of this tutorial, I will answer any questions that you have. I'll try to answer any questions that you have. So triangle and twisting triangle, believe it or not, these are two poses that are, let me give you an idea of the poses I'm talking about before I start to break it down. Triangle pose, Utthita Trikonasana, is where we're doing a side body bend and we're working the lateral flexion of the spine and working the shoulders. And Parivrtta Trikonasana is where we're working with a twisting triangle posture. So basically the triangle pose, but with a twist. Now, if you have back pain and or are working with somebody who does have back pain, it is really important to learn to build strength and to be aware of where potentially the pain is stemming from and how to keep the area where the pain is stemming from relatively stable and strong. The movement part will come from having the stability in place first. If there's pain and we are over bending on the area that is the trigger point for the pain, it might just create more pain. So a pose like triangle and twisting triangle on the surface looks very simple, but it actually is quite a complicated, complex posture. So to start to illustrate some of the ideas here that you can work with, I'm just using a broomstick. And what you do is practice first, taking the broomstick, putting behind the head, and try holding the broomstick with your arms. So notice I have the ends of the broomstick in between my forearm bones, my radius and ulna on my forearm. Now, what I am not doing is putting the broomstick on the back of my neck and hanging my arms over the bar. That is not what you do. That'll hurt the back of your neck. What we're trying to do is keep the stick from falling out of position by gently holding the stick with the arms. And now draw the belly in and try to lift the top of the head toward above, or, if you're in a room, the ceiling, or if you're outside, upward. And at the same time, reach the arms apart and keep the bar in the place. And this exercise alone is quite challenging. So if I turn to the side, you can see I'm kind of like, I have this ability to move my arms. And you do not have to do this with a bar. You can do this without and get the same sort of idea. Is that going to balance? That's not even going to hold there. It's going to slide. Basically, just imagine that you're holding a bar. So in essence, what we're doing is straight out, but just a little tiny bit back, just to kind of feel the work of the muscles on the back of the shoulders. So why triangle pose is relatively challenging on the spine if we have back pain, and I'm just going to keep it loose and just say back pain. There's 100 different things that could be going on in terms of spondylolisthesis or bulging disc or herniations or disc ruptures, all those different things. So now I have my right foot turned out, my left foot turned in, and I'm going to attempt to make the very beginning movement of the triangle without letting my arms really move one way or the other. And here I'm just taking very simple movements. Right foot comes in, left foot comes out, pulling the belly in and attempting to bend the body over to the side and going right to the point where I feel pain. On my left side, when I get right about here is where I start to feel something. So what I'm going to try to do is draw my belly in and lift up. And again, I know this looks so, you don't have to bring a broomstick to class. If you're practicing in a room with people, you don't have to bring something like that in. But I've been holding down the Mysore Ashtanga room for the last 19 years here, and I've had a lot of injuries. I've had a lot of students who have had a lot of injuries. And what we do is we just figure out how can we still come in and practice and do very gentle movement to build strength. And then as the body heals, then we'll go a little bit deeper and come into the classic variation. But just pulling the pose way, way back to its very simplest form, where we just start to initiate the beginning of the actual pose. This is key when you start analyzing all of the yoga poses that you're practicing. Come back to the very beginning part of the shape of the pose and try to feel stability. Pay attention to what the body's doing, how it feels, and only move just enough that you are feeling the core of your body working. Because what's really good about working with triangle too, and especially with having the arms extended out, is that to be able to hold your arms up in the air, and in this case, I'm just moving the bar a little over to one side so that I feel like the points land equally on both sides. Pulling the belly in, I'm turning my foot out, and I'm just making, now one of the big things that happens, notice right here, I'm just kind of moving my trunk into a side bend, as opposed to here, I'm going to move at my hip and keep my spine very stable. So this is a really good exercise to help build the coordination that can come from being aware of just doing lateral flexion here. I'm just bending the spinal column, as opposed to right now I'm using my core muscles. I'm pushing my hips over to the side and folding just a little, holding. This is hard to hold here. And then keeping the muscle squeezing when you come back up. I know sometimes what I hear from people in the room is they think, yeah, but it looks like I can't practice. Like I look so lame doing these little things. Just don't worry about what people think. I mean, that's number one. Your practice is for you. It's not for anybody else. So you got to let all that go if that's part of the problem. All right. So now where this gets really interesting is with twisting triangle. And in some cases, twisting triangle might not be appropriate. If you have a herniation somewhere in the thoracic lumbar spine or even cervical spine where rotational motion is just causing it to put pressure on the innervating nerves, then another way that you can approach, and here I'm back on my mat so you can see a little bit more of the full range of motion, where this pose gets really difficult is that if I turn my left foot in, I turn my right foot out and I helicopter around. And now to bring my left arm down, I can't really come off of the arm alignment, and it's really forcing me to use the oblique muscles. Now your internal and external oblique muscles are, here on the sides of your spine, on your abdomen, because you have your rectus abdominis, which is your six-pack muscle in the middle. 6 or 8 packs, officially 8, but typically when they get really developed, you only see 6 of the little segments. There's actually 8. You have your transverse abdominis, which is that big sheath of musculature that goes across the belly. And when you draw that in, that hollows out the abdominal wall. And then we have internal and external oblique muscles that that one side will contract low and the other side will contract high to get you to rotate one way, and then it will reverse. One side will contract on one side low, one side high, and that'll get you to reverse to be able to do rotational motion. So a lot of times building a healthy spinal column, aka feeling good while you practice and not having back pain, requires strengthening all of the muscles that surround the spine so that we're building strength in the areas that are weak. And so in this practice of isolating the pose back to its initial foundation, here we're working just the arms apart. I'm going to turn my left foot in, my right foot out. I helicopter around through the movement of my pelvis. So really my spine is still relatively neutral. Right about here is where I start engaging my obliques, and I'm just going to do a little bit of rotational movement until the point where I feel like that's far enough. I come up, I keep the belly in, you keep your belly in, you turn your right foot in, you turn your left foot out. I'm going to just very slowly bring my right hand down and my left arm up, working a little bit of that rotational motion. I can really feel the obliques working and come back to center. So that, let me now demonstrate how that can be done without that tool. Because once you get a feeling for that tool using the broomstick, now I might find that when I go out over to the side, right about here is where my back starts to hurt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that the bar is still on my arms, keeping them a relative straight line. I'm just going to bring my hand down, reach the other arm up. So now the arms are pretty much staying on that same line, but I got my stomach in and I'm not doing a really big bending motion in the back. So when you're in a flare up, you won't even be able to move anyway. No, I don't mean it like that, but well, actually, that's true. When you're in a flare up, you don't even want to do any of this stuff, right? But it's important. Like another way that this can be done, if you want to just make it really chill, is just I'm going to put my hands down. Don't even worry about holding the hands out in space because that requires more core muscle strength to be able to hold your arms out and then hang weight out over to one side or the other. So you just remove the arm equation. And here I'm just going to focus on squeeze belly in and do a real simple motion over to the side. So on some days when my back's really bad, but I come practice anyway because I just like to move anyway. I like to keep moving, even if I just barely hardly do anything. And I'm just focusing on just making real steady movement without creating that pinch feeling in the back. That can happen. All right. So then similarly with the twisting triangle, we might just focus on something here where we keep the back leg straight. You put your hands on your knee and you just keep your abdomen really strong. And you don't even have to worry about working into a big twisting motion. You just do a very subtle kind of holding the core stable. You can bend the front knee and you just do a very gentle twisting motion. And then that way you can come back up. Another way that's quite interesting with this one is that if I'm going to pretend to have the bar on my arm, I'm not going to fall off of it. When I come around and I come down, what we can do here, if you want to use your hands, if you find your edge, is just kind of move the arms into something like the twisting triangle, but the torso stays relatively stable so that as you move, you're making just a very simple spinal movement, but you let your arms still make the movement. So see how I'm just isolating the movement mostly to holding the core and moving the arms. So get started first using the broomstick. You won't probably be able to go that far just due to the nature that the stick is on the back of your neck and it can kind of hurt if you go too far. But here I'm just kind of working this angle. I can't let my arms go. So now my arms are out in the air, but I'm doing the same level of rotational motion. So these are different things that I recommend playing with as you are continuing on your yoga journey and learning to take care of your body and building healthy, strong spine. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, send them my way. And I wish you a great day. Namaste.